Step into a pub in Walsall in 1974. The air hangs thick enough to slice with a butter knife, blue with cigarette smoke that has nowhere to go. Behind you, a man finishes his fourth pint of mild, drops his car keys into his pocket, and walks unsteadily towards the door. Nobody glances up. In the corner, a boy of 10 waits for his father, clutching a packet of number 6 he was sent to buy at the counter. The barmaid sold them to him without a second glance. Outside, a Cortina passes with 3 children rolling about the back seat, none of them belted in. This was Britain 50 years ago, and nearly everything you have just witnessed would now land you in a magistrate's court. We are counting down 30 things that were entirely ordinary in the 1970s, but are illegal today. Number 30. Cigarette vending machines stood in the corridors of every pub, cinema, and bingo hall in Britain in the 1970s, glowing softly behind etched glass. For 35 pence, you could pull the lever and watch a packet of Embassy Regal clatter into the tray. No questions asked, no age check, no shame. Children on errands for their parents fed coins into the machines, while the adults played dominoes in the snug. By the late 1970s, an estimated 100,000 vending machines operated across the country, supplying a sizable share of all tobacco sales. Parliament finally banned them outright in October 2011, recognizing that they had been funneling cigarettes to underage smokers with industrial efficiency for decades. Today, the corridors stand empty. The lever, the rattle, the cellophane wink of a fresh packet, all of it gone. Number 29. The corner shop on every estate kept a glass jar of single cigarettes by the till. Brands like Players and Park Drive, and sometimes an Embassy sold on its own for 2 pence. A child of 8 could walk in clutching a note from his mother and walk out with 20 senior service. Shopkeepers asked nothing. The Children and Young Persons Act of 1933 had technically set the legal age at 16, but enforcement through the 1970s was virtually non-existent. National surveys from the era found that nearly 40% of 15-year-olds were regular smokers, most of them buying tobacco openly across the counter. The age was raised to 18 in October 2007, and proxy purchasing, sending a child on your behalf, became a separate offense in 2014. A transaction that was once part of everyday childhood now brings serious consequences for both seller and parent. Tobacco sponsorship saturated British sport through the 1970s, as completely as the smoke that hung in the stands. John Player Special blacked out the Lotus Formula One cars in their iconic gold and black livery, while Embassy splashed across snooker tables, darts boards, and the chests of cricket umpires. Marlborough, Rothmans, and Benson and Hedges spent millions to plaster their logos in front of weekend viewers. The connection between sport and tobacco was so total that the Embassy World Snooker Championship ran from 1976 to 2005. Then came the Tobacco Advertising and Promotion Act of 2002, which phased out sports sponsorship by 2005. Today, a Formula One car or a snooker baize bearing a cigarette logo would breach UK law instantly. The marriage between sport and smoke, once unbreakable, was annulled by Parliament. Number 27. The cinema in Britain in the 1970s was a smoky cathedral. Tickets cost around 40 pence in 1975, and the projector beam carved through a thick fog of cigarette and pipe smoke that drifted from every row. The Odeon, the ABC, the Gaumont, all of them allowed lit cigarettes throughout the screening, with ashtrays bolted into the armrests. Patrons watched Jaws or The Spy Who Loved Me through a haze that often left the screen looking soft and grey. Smoking was finally banned in cinemas under local government bylaws in the 1980s, and then comprehensively under the Health Act 2006, which took effect in July 2007. Today, lighting up at the pictures triggers a £50 fixed penalty notice and possible prosecution for the venue. The blue mist that once made every film slightly atmospheric is now a vanished memory. Number 26. The London Underground. In the 1970s reeked of unfiltered capstan and damp wool. Every carriage carried passengers smoking through the tunnels, ash dropping onto the patterned moquette seats, while non-smoking carriages, when they existed at all, were often ignored. The King's Cross fire of November 1987, which killed 31 people and was caused by a discarded match igniting accumulated grease beneath an escalator, finally forced complete change. Smoking had been banned across the entire network above ground from February 1985, and the fire led to a total ban after that. Today, a single drag on the platform at Oxford Circus brings a £1,000 maximum fine. The image of a commuter flicking ash into a tube tunnel would now seem grotesque, but for an entire generation, it was simply the morning journey. Smoking on aeroplanes was so normal in the 1970s that British Airways, then BOAC, sold cigarettes from the trolley at 30,000 feet. Rows at the front were marked non-smoking, but the cabin shared a single recirculated air system, meaning everybody breathed the smoke regardless of where they sat. Cabin crew smoked between services. Pilots smoked in the cockpit. Children flying unaccompanied to see their grandparents in Glasgow or Belfast arrived smelling of tar. The first restrictions came in the late 1980s, and a complete ban on all British airline flights was imposed in March 1998. Today, smoking aboard a UK aircraft can land you a £2,000 fine and arrest on landing. The flight that once smelled of duty-free tobacco now smells of nothing at all. Hospital wards filled with cigarette smoke through the 1970s, and nobody thought it strange. Patients smoked in their beds. Visitors brought packets as get-well gifts, neatly stacked on bedside lockers next to the grapes and Lucozade. Doctors smoked on rounds. Nurses smoked at the desk. Even in the maternity wing, fathers paced corridors clouded with their own smoke, whilst waiting for the news. The Royal College of Physicians had warned about the risks as early as 1962, but hospital trusts moved at a glacial pace. Smoking was progressively banned in clinical areas through the late 1980s and the 1990s, and the 2007 indoor smoking ban completed the transformation. Today, lighting up within 15 meters of an NHS hospital entrance is a disciplinary matter for staff and an offence for patients. The cardiac ward, of all places, was once a smoking room. Number 23. The British office of the 1970s was a fug of Embassy No. 1 and instant coffee. Typists smoked at their desks, ashtrays sat on every filing cabinet, and meetings were conducted through a steady curtain of blue smoke that yellowed the ceiling tiles within months of decoration. Non-smoking colleagues had no recourse. By 1980, around 45% of British men still smoked, and the workplace was their domain. Then came the Health Act of 2006, which took effect on the 1st of July 2007 in England. Lighting up indoors at work became a criminal offence overnight, punishable by a £50 fixed penalty for the smoker and a fine of up to £2,500 for the employer. The Monday morning ashtray ritual, performed by every secretary across Britain, vanished in a single summer. Number 22. Smoking in pubs and restaurants was so woven into the 1970s social fabric that to imagine a pub without ashtrays was to imagine no pub at all. The carpets were patterned to hide burn marks. The walls turned tobacco yellow within 5 years of any redecoration. Diners at the Burney Inn lit cigarettes between courses. Children huddled in family rooms while their parents smoked in the lounge bar. The smoking ban came into force in Scotland in March 2006, in Wales and Northern Ireland in April 2007, and in England on the 1st of July 2007. pubs lost an estimated quarter of their custom overnight, and thousands closed permanently in the years that followed. Today, lighting up indoors in any licensed premises is a criminal offense. The pub that smelled of ale and tobacco now smells, for the first time in centuries, of food. Number 21. Smoking in cars with children was such an ordinary 1970s occurrence that almost every adult alive today over 50 has memories of being driven to school through a fog of their parents' smoke. Father in the driving seat with a park drive between his fingers, mother in the passenger seat tapping ash into the door tray, children in the back coughing into a wound-up rear window. Studies later showed that smoking in a closed car can produce levels of fine particulate matter 11 times higher than the limit considered safe. The practice remained legal until the 1st of October 2015, when smoking in any vehicle carrying anyone under 18 became an offence in England and Wales, with a £50 fine attached. Scotland followed in December 2016. The school run that once smelled of number 6 now smells of seat fabric. Number 20. Driving without a seatbelt was the absolute normal in the 1970s. Most family cars were fitted with belts as standard from 1968 onwards, but actually wearing one was treated as an oddity, even an affront. Children rolled around in the back of estate cars, unrestrained. Parents drove with their arms out to the window. Official figures showed that in 1981, only 40% of front seat passengers used the belt at all. Front seatbelt use became compulsory in Britain on the 31st of January 1983, with a fixed penalty fine. Compulsory rear seatbelt use for children followed in September 1989, and for adults in July 1991. Today, driving without a seatbelt brings a £100 on-the-spot fine and 3 penalty points for a stricter offence. The casual unbelted Sunday drive of 1975 would today draw a magistrate's attention. Number 19. Children unrestrained in the front seat were a defining feature of family motoring in the 1970s. A toddler might stand between the front seats, tiny hands gripping the dashboard, while babies sat on a parent's lap with no restraint of any kind. Some families fitted aftermarket fabric harnesses bought from Mothercare, but they were uncommon. The Road Traffic Act of 1991 introduced the requirement for children under 14 to use appropriate restraints, and the rules were tightened further in September 2006 when child seats and boosters became compulsory for children under 12 or 135 centimeters tall. Today, a parent driving with an unrestrained toddler in the front seat faces a £500 fine and 3 points on their license. The image of a child standing in the footwell on the M1 belongs entirely to a vanished Britain. Number 18. Riding in the open back of a lorry or pickup was a regular feature of British life in the 1970s. Builders, farm workers, and entire scout troops were ferried about in the open beds of flatbed Bedfords and Ford Transits, holding onto the cab and to each other as the vehicles bounced along the A roads. Hayride parties at village fêtes were normal. Construction crews piled in for the morning commute. There was no specific law against it. The construction and use regulations were progressively tightened through the 1980s, and the carrying of passengers in open goods vehicles is now restricted and effectively prohibit most such trips. Today, transporting 6 labourers in the back of a flatbed would draw an immediate stop from any traffic officer, with the driver facing prosecution. Number 17. Drink driving in the 1970s in Britain was widespread, casual, and rarely prosecuted. The Road Safety Act of 1967 introduced the breathalyzer and an 80 milligram limit, but enforcement was thin and social attitudes lagged behind the law by decades. Salesmen drove home from 3-pint lunches. Office workers drove home from the Christmas party. The Department of Transport recorded that in 1979, drink driving caused around 1,600 deaths a year on British roads, a figure which has since fallen by over 80%. The Don't Drink and Drive public information campaigns began in earnest in the late 1970s, and Scotland reduced its limit to 50 milligrams in December 2014. Today, a casual lunchtime pint followed by a drive home brings a court appearance and a minimum 12-month ban. The acceptable Friday norm has become a serious crime. Number 16. Leaded petrol filled every tank in Britain in the 1970s. Petrol stations sold 4-star at around 73 pence a gallon by 1979, and tetraethyl lead was added to the fuel to prevent engine knock and to lubricate valves. The lead came out of the exhaust pipe as fine particles that settled on every roadside hedge, every garden, and every child's lung. The World Health Organization later estimated that ambient lead exposure had measurably reduced the IQ of an entire generation of urban children. Unleaded petrol arrived in Britain in 1986. Leaded 4-star was banned for general sale on the 1st of January 2000, with limited exceptions for classic vehicles. Today, putting leaded petrol into a road car is illegal, and the fuel is virtually unobtainable. The metallic tang that hung over the M1 in 1975 was poison, and we breathed it without complaint. Number 15. Lead-based paint-coated cots, toys, windowsills, and kitchen cabinets in British homes in the 1970s. The bright white gloss your father painted on the bedroom door in 1973 contained levels of lead now considered catastrophically dangerous to children. Babies teething on cot rails ingested it. Toddlers chewing painted toys absorbed it. The European Union restricted lead in domestic paint from 1992, and the rules tightened further under the REACH regulations in the 2000s. Today, manufacturing or selling paint for domestic use containing more than 0.009% lead is illegal in the UK. Renovating a 1970s house now requires lead testing and specialist removal of suspect surfaces. The cheerful nursery in pale yellow gloss, painted with such pride, has become a hazardous waste problem requiring a contractor in protective equipment. Number 14. Asbestos lagging covered the pipes in school boiler rooms, the ceiling tiles in office blocks, and the airing cupboards of countless council houses of the 1970s. Artex ceilings, Marley tiles, and pipework insulation were laced with white, brown, or blue asbestos, all installed by men working without masks in clouds of fibrous dust. The asbestos industry regulations of 1969 had tightened workplace rules, but domestic and educational use of asbestos products continued through the decade. Brown and blue asbestos were banned in 1985. The complete UK ban on importing, supplying, and using all forms of asbestos came into force on the 24th of November 1999. Today, disturbing asbestos without a licensed contractor is a criminal offence under the Control of Asbestos Regulations 2012. The lagging your father patched in 1976 will likely kill some of those who installed it. Number 13. CFC propellants powered every aerosol can in Britain in the 1970s, from Sure deodorant to Cossack hairspray to oven cleaner. Chlorofluorocarbons were marketed as safe, inert, and non-flammable, and they were, until they reached the upper atmosphere and began destroying the ozone layer. The British Antarctic Survey discovered the ozone hole in 1985, and the Montreal Protocol of 1987 began the global phase-out. Britain implemented the EU regulations through the 1990s, and the manufacture of CFC-propelled consumer aerosols was effectively prohibited by 1995. Today, selling or importing a CFC aerosol can in the UK is illegal under the ozone-depleting substances regulations. The hiss of your mother's Silvercrin hairspray was, unbeknownst to her, contributing to a planetary crisis. The product that defined every teenage girl's bathroom in 1976 has been illegal for 30 years. Number 12. Mercury thermometers sat in every medicine cabinet in Britain in the 1970s. Glass tubes filled with bright silver liquid were shaken down with a flick of the wrist, slipped under tongues, and trusted absolutely. Children dropped them, the glass shattered, and the mercury rolled across linoleum floors in mesmerizing silver beads that families pushed about with fingers and even mouths. The toxicity of elemental mercury was poorly understood by the general public, despite being well known to scientists. The European Union banned the sale of mercury-containing measuring devices for general public use on the 3rd of April 2009. Today, supplying a mercury thermometer for domestic use in the UK is illegal under the mercury regulations. The household tool that measured every childhood fever for 100 years vanished from chemists overnight. Number 11. Stubble burning lit up the British countryside every autumn through the 1970s. After the harvest, farmers torched the dry stalks left in their fields, sending vast walls of flame and rolling clouds of smoke across hundreds of thousands of acres. The smoke choked nearby villages, blackened washing on the line, and occasionally caused motorway pile-ups when it drifted onto roads. The practice was defended as cheap pest control and quick land clearance. Public outrage and a series of fatal smoke-related accidents led the government to ban stubble burning across England and Wales from the 1993 harvest, under the Crop Residues Burning Regulations, 1993. Today, a farmer setting fire to his stubble would face fines of up to £5,000 and prosecution. The orange autumn skyline that defined the harvest of 1976 has been illegal for over 30 years. Fox hunting with hounds was a defining feature of rural Britain in the 1970s. Hunts met on village greens at dawn, glasses of port were drunk on horseback, and packs of foxhounds were sent across the countryside to chase and kill foxes. The Boxing Day meet was a social event, drawing hundreds of spectators in towns from Yorkshire to Devon. Around 300 registered packs operated across Britain at the height of the practice. Public opinion shifted slowly through the 1990s. The Hunting Act 2004 came into force on the 18th of February 2005, banning the hunting of wild mammals with dogs in England and Wales. Scotland passed similar legislation in 2002. Today, riding to hounds in pursuit of a fox is a criminal offence punishable by an unlimited fine. The pink coats and bugles still gather, but the fox now lives. Number 9. Hare coursing drew large crowds to British fields throughout the 1970s. 2 greyhounds were released to chase a single hare, with bookmakers taking bets on which dog would turn the animal first. The Waterloo Cup at Altcar in Lancashire, founded in 1836, was the sport's premier event and ran annually until 2005, drawing thousands of spectators and offering substantial prize money. Coursing was hugely popular among working-class men in northern England, who travelled by special excursion trains from Manchester and Liverpool. The Hunting Act 2004 banned the practice along with fox hunting, and illegal coursing has since become a serious problem in eastern England, with rural police forces running specialist operations every winter. Today, organising or attending a hare coursing event is a criminal offence, carrying fines and imprisonment. The sport that once filled fields beyond Liverpool with cheering crowds is now run only by criminals at night. Number 8. The American Pit Bull Terrier was a fashionable family dog. In the 1970s in Britain. Imported by the thousand, the breed was sold openly in pet shops and advertised in Exchange and Mart, and many were kept as loyal household pets without incident. but a series of horrific attacks in the late 1980s, including the mauling of a 6-year-old girl in Bradford in 1991, led to public outrage and rapid legislation. The Dangerous Dogs Act 1991 came into force on the 12th of August 1991, prohibiting the breeding, sale, and ownership of pit bull terriers, Japanese Tosas, Dogo Argentinos, and Fila Brasileiros. The XL bully was added to the list in February 2024. Today, owning a banned breed without a court-ordered exemption is a criminal offense. The dog that was once advertised on the back page of the local paper is now contraband. Number 7. Selling fireworks to children was so unremarkable in the 1970s that boys aged 9 and 10 queued at corner shops in early November to buy bangers, jumping jacks, and rocket assortments with their pocket money. A penny banger genuinely cost a penny in 1972. Children played with lit fireworks in the street, threw bangers at cats and bicycles, and arrived at school on November 6th, nursing scorched fingers as a badge of weekend honor. A and E departments dreaded bonfire night, and with reason. The Fireworks Safety Regulations 1997 raised the minimum purchase age to 18, and the Fireworks Act 2003 introduced curfews and stricter retail licensing. Today, selling a single sparkler to a 15-year-old is a criminal offense carrying a £5,000 fine. The penny banger, the prized possession of every primary school boy in 1973, has been illegal for nearly 30 years. Number 6. Selling glue and solvents to minors was unrestricted through most of the 1970s. Bostik, Evo-Stik, lighter fluid, and aerosol cans of cleaning solvent were openly sold to children of any age at hardware shops and corner stores across Britain. Glue sniffing emerged as a national panic in the late 1970s, with newspapers reporting hundreds of solvent-related deaths among teenagers each year. The Intoxicating Substances Supply Act 1985 made it a criminal offense to supply a substance to a person under 18 if the seller knew or had reasonable cause to believe it would be inhaled for intoxication. Today, retailers face 6 months imprisonment and an unlimited fine for selling solvents knowingly to minors. The model glue that built every Airfix Spitfire on a 1976 bedroom carpet is now sold under restrictions that did not exist when an entire generation built their model armies. Caning in state schools was the unquestioned instrument of discipline through the 1970s. A 4-foot length of bamboo or rattan, kept on a hook behind the headmaster's desk, was applied across the palms or the buttocks of boys, and very occasionally girls, for offenses ranging from talking in class to forgetting one's PE kit. Around 250,000 canings were recorded annually in English secondary schools at the practice's height. The European Court of Human Rights ruled against corporal punishment in British schools in 1982. The Education No. 2 Act of 1986 outlawed the cane in all state-funded schools, taking effect on the 15th of August 1987. Today, a teacher who struck a pupil with a cane would face dismissal, prosecution for assault, and likely imprisonment. The instrument that defined British schooling for generations vanished entirely within a decade. Number 4. Caning continued in private and grant-maintained schools long after the state ban. Boys at independent prep schools and public schools were beaten with canes, slippers, and tackies through the 1990s, with the practice defended as a tradition essential to character formation. Eton, Harrow, and Westminster all retained the cane into the late 1980s. The School Standards and Framework Act 1998 banned corporal punishment in private schools in England and Wales from September 1999. Scotland banned it in independent schools in 2000, and Northern Ireland followed in 2003. Today, no school in the United Kingdom may strike a pupil with any implement, and a master who attempted it would be dismissed instantly and prosecuted for common assault. The headmaster's slipper, that quietly threatening soft shoe kept in the deputy head's drawer, has been illegal for over 25 years. Number 3. Workplace sexual harassment was, through the 1970s, simply a feature of being a woman in employment. Bottoms were pinched, breasts grabbed, lewd comments were shouted across factory floors and typing pools, and that was treated as routine office banter. The Sex Discrimination Act, 1975, made discrimination unlawful, but the concept of harassment as a legal wrong barely existed in British case law until the late 1980s. Tribunal rulings progressively established that unwanted sexual conduct constituted unlawful discrimination, and the Equality Act 2010 finally codified harassment as a distinct legal offense. Employers can now be held vicariously liable for failing to prevent harassment, and from October 2024, a new positive duty requires them to take preventive steps. The casual touching, the obscene calendar in the office, the tea-girl initiation, all of which were unremarkable in 1976, would today end careers and trigger six-figure tribunal awards. Number 2. Smacking children with implements at home was an everyday parental practice in Britain in the 1970s. The wooden spoon, the slipper, the hairbrush, all were standard tools of discipline, applied without controversy or restraint. The defense of reasonable chastisement had existed in English common law since 1860, allowing parents to inflict moderate physical punishment on their children. The Children Act 2004, Section 58, narrowed the defense considerably, prohibiting any punishment that left a mark or caused mental harm. Scotland banned all physical punishment of children outright on the 7th of November 2020, and Wales followed on the 21st of March 2022. Today, a Scottish or Welsh parent who smacks a child commits the criminal offence of common assault. The wooden spoon that hung from a hook in the kitchen of every 1970s household is, in 2 of the 4 UK nations, now an instrument of crime. Number 1. Marital rape was legal in England and Wales until the 23rd of October, 1991. Until that date, a man could not be charged with raping his own wife, under the common law principle articulated by Sir Matthew Hale in 1736, that marriage constituted irrevocable consent to all subsequent sexual relations. The 1970s passed without any serious legislative challenge to this position, despite the rise of the women's movement and the campaigning of refugees and academics. Scotland abolished the marital rape exemption in 1989. The case of R versus R, decided by the House of Lords in October 1991, finally swept the doctrine away in England and Wales, and the Sexual Offences Act 2003 placed the position beyond doubt. Today, the offence carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The crime that the law refused to recognise for 2.5 centuries took less than 2 decades to become the most serious in the calendar. Britain has changed almost beyond recognition in 50 years. Some of these reforms saved lives by the thousand. Others ended cruelties so embedded in daily existence that nobody at the time thought of them as cruel at all. The Cortina with 3 children rolling about the back, the headmaster reaching for his cane, the husband whose conduct the law refused to scrutinize, all of it was simply how things were done. Whether the country has gone too far or not nearly far enough is a question for the comments below. Tell me which of these you remember most clearly, which surprised you most, and which you wish had stayed legal. Britain in 1975 was another country. Half a century from now, our own ordinary will look just as strange,